think it's really important that we reflect on our teaching practices. I mean, the obvious reason is that we want to improve our teaching, but reflection asks us, for one thing, why we want to improve our teaching. And somewhat less obviously is, if we love what we do by improving our teaching, then we're going to stay energized. We're going to stay satisfied with what we're doing, so we're going to be better at it. The challenges bring us energy to grow and to change. For me, challenges evoke creative problem solving, both in teaching and in my personal life. And then I think if we're satisfied or content, and that doesn't necessarily mean status quo, but I think that has to be the foundation, because without it, we would just get frustrated when we were trying to grow and change. And then we think we hate teaching, or else we're just not happy. So I reflect on my teaching chronically, but I don't think that's really good. And the question makes me think about, we have to distinguish between worry and reflection. And sometimes it can be hard to discern between those. And so what I do is I try to be aware of my thoughts and feelings even before I'm going to reflect, because if I'm feeling it, to me, it's more of a worry, and that will cloud my perspective as I'm trying to reflect. If it's more thought-based, then I can, have a little bit of a more objective perspective, and I can then be using the data, not necessarily numbers, but the observations and the products and those kinds of data. I think it's important also to do it over time, but again, not all the time. Like, it's sort of, for me, I do this thing called a worry walk, where I set a discrete amount of time to worry about things in my life. So same with reflection. I think do it consistently over time and do it for a discrete amount of time. When you do it, it trains the brain to know when you're going to do that. Specifically, I do it when I develop plans. I do it after a class, and then I do it when I'm looking at students' work at the end of a semester. Deciding when to make changes or when to make improvements, I think that's really the trickiest part, because not all changes are improvements, and sometimes we think they are. Sometimes they're just reactions. More in terms of directly answering that question, I do it sometimes mid-course. I will most often make changes when I'm grading the end projects of a course, which is when I'm also beginning to redesign the course. And I do it when I have enough data in place to know that, yeah, this really is pointing, all of the signs are pointing in the same direction. I use my data and my gut to decide when to make changes and where those changes are relevant. But I think you have to do it enough to be able to trust your gut. So you have to know that you're reflecting and not reacting. Again, sort of back to that piece. I think that for me, the first piece of advice I would give myself is stop trying to read the room, because you can't do that with online teaching. So you have to maybe look at other kinds of data sources. You can record yourself and go back, but you still can't read the room. You're not going to get the vibes. I try to ask the same types of questions, for example, open-ended questions, what ifs, how do I know, that I would ask in face-to-face teaching, but I contextualize it. So it's more to the unique issues that come with online teaching, either whether it's synchronous sessions or asynchronous sessions. So I might think, well, what online specific issues contributed to how this synchronous class went? The flow of the conversation, the students are at home on the couch, or how does their work that I'm seeing asynchronously reflect their understanding? I would ask that in a face-to-face class. But now I'm having to ask it looking at things such as, did they have enough in the directions? Is the reason their work not reflective of their understanding because of the fact that we did not have access to each other, and there was no nonverbal communication? I try to also reflect from the perspective of a student looking through a screen, or sitting on their couch, or having to do it on their own, sort of like I said above. And then I because I am one, I reflect through my perspective as an instructor. Do I really want to be communicating 24/7 with these students? What can I do that may prevent that from happening or intervene if it starts to happen?